Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we're taking a closer look at and installing the HD elevation front bumper available for the 09 to 14 F-150. You should be checking out this particular bumper if you're looking for that bumper brush guard combo to give you the ultimate off-road and on-road protection while making your front end just look extremely badass. This particular bumper and brush guard combo really does protect every aspect of the front end, including the lower bumper by actually fully replacing it with a flat steel construction and a fully welded brush guard to wrap all the way around the sides, protecting the headlights, fenders, hood line, and your front grille. This being all-inclusive for your front end protection, you would think is extremely expensive, but actually it's pretty affordable in the world of bumper and brush guards. This comes in right around $850, which was surprising to me because I can see this quality built into this brush guard bumper combo. This is a fully welded flat steel construction, which is going to increase all of that durability, making it a ton stronger than some of the other things in the category. Some of the other options out there are three-piece, meaning that this whole middle section would then separately bolt up to your headlight guards and so on and so forth, which looks a little bit easier for the installation, but won't be as strong as that fully welded construction you see here. That wraparound design really hugs the lines of your headlights, follows that body line, so it looks like it belongs on that F-150, and it was really made for this specific vehicle. Some of those other ones out there just look like they're copy and pasted in universal fitment, but this one here really does look and feel like it's meant for this generation F-150. Now, a couple of key things to take away from this particular option here when comparing it to some of the other ones out there. Number one, it is that fully welded combo. The bumper and the brush guard all in one piece. It bolts up all together. Nothing is separate, which means it's increasing durability, and it means it's a little easier on the install, in my personal opinion. That bumper down low is completely replacing that factory one, which is going to take a beating like the factory one could never. This thing, on and off-road protection, is completely superior. Now, you're not exactly gaining ground clearance. If anything, it might be hanging down just a little bit lower than the factory one, which means you're not tackling as many obstacles as you would like to, but with that in mind, it is going to be a lot stronger. If you were to come in contact with an obstacle on the trail like a log or rock or even something in the parking lot, you'd be causing more damage to the obstacle than you'd be taking on the front end of this truck. That steel construction takes that beating for you, it's impact resistant, and it's gone through a two-stage epoxy coating, giving it corrosion and rust resistance, so if you were to ding something up, this thing you don't have to worry about rusting away. And that textured black finish is going to be more scratch resistant, so it won't look like it came in contact with something when you're done. With all that said, there are a couple of more points I want to point out here. Our F-150 does not come with factory tow hooks, but if yours does, you have open slots you see here, which will definitely make sure that you can retain those. You might have to take them off for the install of the brackets, but you will be able to throw them right back on to fully utilize that for that front end functionality. Second thing I want to point out here, factory fog lights are retained in this bumper. No need to cut, no need to weld, no need to drill, none of that nonsense. Those pre-cut holes are perfect, and those brackets on the back of this bumper to accept the factory mounting positions and mounting points on those factory fog light brackets. So they bolt right up very easily before you throw this whole thing onto the truck. Super simple stuff. I'll walk you through that in just a little bit. Also, dead center, you can see this grill that's cut out in the center. That is accepting a double row 20-inch LED light bar, so if you want to pick that up separately, there's mounting brackets on the back there as well, so you can add additional auxiliary lighting. The top here as well has that honeycomb grille, giving you just a little bit of extra protection for that front end. That's really nice. Some of the other options don't carry that. Some guys might not like the look of it, but if you're going for that functionality, this is something that you really will appreciate because of that added protection to the front grille. It's pretty important. You don't want to get any debris, or say you're driving on the highway and a bird smacks into this, you're not going to get all that guts going straight into your rad. This is going to give you that little bit of extra protection. The last thing I want to point out for the guys out there in states with front end license plates, this does have cutout squares on the front end and plugs included in the hardware package to make sure that you can retain that front end plate and stay street legal. The install, I am going to give a soft 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter, simply because it's very big, very heavy, because it is that full width, full wraparound. Have a helping hand on deck. It's going to go a long way. It's going to be nearly impossible to install by yourself. It's just too heavy to hold and wrench. It's not worth the risk because you definitely can get hurt if this thing falls on you. Have a helping hand, some very simple hand tools that will get the job done, and I'm going to show you guys how it gets done. Say about 2, maybe 3 hours from start to finish. So what do you say we just get to it? Tools used in this install were an impact gun, ratchet, 8mm deep socket, 10mm socket, 13, 15, 18, 19, 21mm deep sockets, 10mm swivel socket, a variety of extensions, 10mm wrench, 18 and 19mm wrenches. The first step of the uninstall here is to disconnect your fog light bulbs from the housing. That way when you pull the front bumper off, you're not pulling the harness with it. So we're gonna reach our hand in right under the headlights, twist the entire bulb right out of the housing on both sides to disconnect it. All right, same thing on the other side. Now there's 4 bolts and nuts holding on the bumper to the frame. 2 on each side, they're 21mm nuts on this stud here, and 1 on the other side of the frame here, and the same thing on the other side. So grab a 21 socket and a ratchet, and we're gonna pop these nuts off. Once you break it loose, you should be able to just rotate the nut by hand and pull that off. Now because these nuts are on studs, the studs should still hold the bumper into place, but use caution when removing them. All right, now do the same thing on the other side. The bumper is basically resting on the studs we just took those nuts off of, so I'm just going to pull straight back on the bumper to disconnect it, and we'll just set it aside. All right, so it's about time we got our factory bumper on our table here. There's a couple of things we need to remove and transfer over to our new Steelcraft bumper. What we're gonna do is going to remove our factory fog lights. Now that whole bracket is attached to the factory bumper with 3 8mm bolts, 2 at the top here, 1 at the bottom. Same thing on the opposite side. We're gonna transfer those over to our new bumper. We're also gonna transfer over this bracket at the top here. Now, we know that there's this big exoskeleton on the back of the bumper here. We don't have to remove the entire bracketing from the back. There's just 2 bolts holding on this top bracket that initially held on your hood latch release. We're gonna take that off, and that's gonna attach to the plastic trim right under our headlights, underneath of where that grill would be. So first things first, we'll get back to this. We wanna remove our factory fog lights. We got an 8mm socket, we're gonna remove those bolts. Next up, grab your 13mm socket and remove the 2 bolts, 1 on each corner of that bracket that held on that hood latch release. Now we can set our factory bumper aside. All right, now that we have our fog lights in place here, we're just gonna slide those right on top of those brackets. Use our new hardware provided in the kit. They're 10mm bolts and lock nuts. Make sure you have a spacer or a washer on the bolt head side underneath, followed by the nylon lock nut. Same thing for the other 2 open holes. Repeat this for the other side. Now we can install our hood latch bracket using our factory hardware. It's gonna go right underneath of this plastic trim. Tighten these down with those factory 8mm bolts, and then we'll move on to reattaching that hood latch. Next up, grab that hood latch release, hook that into place, put your factory 10mm bolt back in. We're gonna tighten that down. It's about time we put our front brush guard into place with that bumper. I got my buddy Travis here from American Trucks to help me. It is extremely heavy, so you wanna have a helping hand on deck. So what do you say we get to it?
Let's get it.
Let's do it. Now, while your friend's holding up that brush guard in place, since it is really heavy, it's gonna be really awkward for you to work the ratchet and hold it up. So have that helping hand on deck. Put those bolts provided for you in the kit through the open slots on the top and the bottom, leaving this middle one free. We'll come back to that in just a little bit. But for now, tighten these down. And just repeat for the other side. Now the last step of the actual install for our bumper and brush guard is our flat or straight brackets. These straight brackets are gonna go on just like those slanted brackets we installed to our frame brackets before we got on our bumper and brush guard. Now, what that basically means, on that frame bracket, the really large bracket we installed at first, on the one side, there was a slanted bracket that looked just like this, slanted at the top. That got installed on one side from the flange to the bracket itself. This is simply going on the opposite side. They're gonna help you line things up. They're gonna get this thing nice and straight. So all those bolts we just put in, the top and bottom on the right, top and bottom on the left, we got them nice and snug, but now we want to install this flat or straight bracket to line everything up, go back down and tighten down all of our hardware. Sounds a little confusing, but just really on the opposite side of our original bracket, we're gonna install this, just like we did with our slant bracket. So hop underneath, install this with 2 bolts, of course, one going to the flange, one going to our frame bracket. And then the last thing we have to do, just plug in our fog lights. Now, of course, if you have any light bars or any other lighting you want to install to this, now is the time, but we're not going to be tackling that. And the only other thing we didn't tackle was tow hooks. Our factory F150 did not come with tow hooks, but if yours did, open slots right here for you. So first things first, flat or straight brackets, then our fog lights, then we're done. All right, now it's time to plug our fog lights back in, and of course we just twisted them out of our factory housing, so we're gonna do the same here since we are still using the factory housing. And repeat for the other side. Last step of the whole thing, reconnect our battery. Of course, we disconnected the negative terminal, so we wanna pop that back in place. Grab your 8mm socket, tighten down that nut. All right, once your hood's shut and everything's bolted up, you've tightened everything down, you're good to go. That's gonna wrap up my review and install of this HD elevation front bumper, available right here at AmericanTrucks.com.